It's great to be here again at MacAd. Joel Rennick sends his apologies. He usually hosts this event. He is unfortunately in another part of the world right now. But it's a thrill to be back here in Brighton, especially at this lovely hotel for this great conference. I think this is, what, year 6? Something along those lines? 7, my golly. Time, the inexorable march of time, as my 10-year-old says, usually when he's making fun of me for being old. But it's great to be back here. It's great to be with this crowd, especially this week. We're going to talk a little bit about everything that happened today and everything that's going on in the world that we live in terms of the tech industry and all of those wonderful things. I've got some incredible guests today. And we're going to sit down and have an amazing conversation. So let's get right to it. So immediately to my left, hello, Holly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Would you introduce yourself for everybody?
If you didn't catch my talk earlier, where were you? I'm Holly Foxcroft. I delivered a talk on embracing neurodiversity in the technology industry. I'm also the cybersecurity lead for the Portsmouth Education Partnership.
Fantastic. And Chris Chapman.
Hello, hello. Good.
And it's great to see you. Introduce yourself as well.
Yes, my name is Chris Chapman. I'm Chief Technology Officer at Mac Stadium. I gave a talk earlier about workflow with virtualization on Mac, and glad to be here.
Fantastic. Liam, hello.
Hello. Liam, Technical Lead in Jigsaw 24. I was going to say, if anyone asks a question about where are the ducks, I do take bribes. So, you know, beer, anything, I'm good.
Fantastic. Erin Merchant, hello.
Hello. I claim no professionalism whatsoever, clearly. I'm Erin Merchant. My day job is working as a senior manager of IT support at Chime, which is a US-based financial company, and I'm also the co-chair of the Mac Admins Foundation.
Awesome. And Eric, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thanks. Hello, I'm Eric. I'm the co-founder of Central. I'm software developer.
Awesome. So we just heard this incredible session in this room, and thank you, Molly Watt, for giving us a tour of accessibility, because as we heard, you know, some 35% of folks who live here in Britain are identified as disabled. And when we think about removing those barriers to entry, you know, we think about a lot of the technological work that we do in terms of removing barriers from work. And so one of the things I want to talk about is maybe some of what we saw today in terms of what are the things that you're seeing out in the industry and that we see in presentations, you know, that's about removing barriers to work and things along those lines. So what did you learn today? And so I was going to say, do you want to go first, or shall I demur to somebody else for the first time?
I'm still processing that.
All right.
Hold on. Anyone else?
I'll take it for you.
You go, what I think a really good answer.
I'm going to give you, very brashly, give you a compliment that I learned a lot from your talk today, Holly.
Oh,
It
thanks.
was one of the highlights of the day for me. There was a really poignant question that someone asked about the interaction with technology, especially for youth, and what that is doing in terms of our attention span, and is it good or bad? And you gave a really nuanced answer to that, which I appreciated, which is that, you know, there are things that we need to do to mitigate, but, and I am absolutely paraphrasing this, that overall there's still a net good because the thing is the equalizer. And from just like a person-to-person perspective, I really appreciated that over thinking about it from, you know, like a corporate complexity answer, you know, like I don't need to only be thinking about it in terms of my scope of work, but it's just like in the scope of the people that I help, in the scope of the ways that I still end up as somebody's administrator in my personal life, like what does that actually mean, and what does that interaction mean, and how can I positively and genuinely give them advice, not just on the usability of the thing, but how to functionally use the thing in support of their endeavor. So thank you for that. I've never also known how to answer that question. I feel much more prepared for it.
I've got my answer. My one is to not assume ability. I think with technology, we can just assume, one, that people can use it, people understand it, and it's going to either not labor them. But I also think there is so much danger in technology over-laboring some people and making things so complicated sometimes. But also, with regards to ability and what the tech can actually do, is letting people discover their own relationship with how they can actually use that technology itself. Yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic.
It's nearly the end of the day.
It is near the end of the day.
from me
And
today.
I want to thank you all for, willingly coming up here to talk in front of your peers after an incredibly long day. I mean, I was going to say, we all saw a ton of talks today. And, by the way, round of applause for all of our incredible talks today, please. So, Chris, you talked a little bit about, virtualization and how that can, function and save time. And so I was going to say, what were the other lessons that you learned out of the other talks that you got to see today?
Well, I think talking to people after that and in seeing some of the things like Kanji and what they were doing, I've noticed a sort of a declarative GitOpsy thing, which we see on the dev side of the planet, starting
Sure.
to move more into the IT and admin space, which is interesting for sure. I think it's an interesting way to sort of orchestrate and manage the world in a more automated way, and I seem to have a lot of conversations around that, and people going, "Oh, I never thought of this case or that case, or how to use it that way." So that was a surprise to me. I was expecting to be sort of, again, we always describe it as the Venn diagram of overlap of where the heck we make sense with the rest of the world. But that was interesting.
Yeah, it's really been an evolution as we've seen over the last decade or so as folks move towards that IT infrastructure as code, not just code infrastructure as code.
100%. Yeah.
And to move that direction, even with the VMs that you were showing this morning, talking about putting those kind of containers into a Git repo and being able to deliver a lot of that image functionality out of that space.
Yeah, well, and I think even it's just the idea of the workflow. It's funny, even at Mac Stadium, we have a hardcore operational sort of side of the fence and developers, and they tend to fight like this constantly. But it's the idea of being able to sort of commit and check and review and back up and see what happened and move forward quickly. And I think that's an evolving concept across the teams.
Fantastic. Eric, it's so great to have you here. Zentral is such a unique organization in a lot of ways. What did you take away from today?
I mean, I was impressed by the presentation from Monzo, because I was impressed, and at the same time I was really glad, because it's validating a lot of what we think is an interesting direction. So taking like some of the best open source agents that exist and tying them together and making them work to complement the Apple MDM. And it's incredible that they were able to do that in-house. Really like, and what they did with the conditional access even afterwards, like all the signals that they are using to do conditional access. It was really, really inspiring as well. And of course, like, I mean, that's what we are pushing now with our products. So GitOps, it doesn't have to be like only for infrastructure. We want to apply it to configuration as well. Why not put like configuration profiles on everything? So hearing not only from us, but from and seeing that it's gathering momentum. This idea of because it allows like more auditability, peer reviews, and of course like to be able to work like properly as engineers, and to put back the engineers in the CPE role. I'm really glad that it's getting traction, and I'm really glad that we can be part of it and try to push it in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And Liam, how about you?
It's been a fun one. I mean, I've got an incredibly long list of sessions to watch back. Being part of the organizer and doing a stand, I haven't been able to watch as many as I would like to. Because I've attended this previously as just an attendee, and it's great sort of watching these sessions. So I've got to go back and watch them. I mean, the Monzo one again is one that's at the top of my list, but just from a zero trust perspective. It's a dream that a lot of customers have, and the conversations that I have as well about how can you get to that level. And I think that's from their perspective. And I was having this conversation with someone outside earlier, is hearing about how people do it in the real world is the best use case. It's the best thing about these sort of events, hearing the problems that people have had and how they've overcome those problems. Because 9 times out of 10 you go, I've had that problem. How do I put that into my own business? And I think the sharing of knowledge, and you can see it out there. People just talking about what they've just heard and writing down notes and sharing notes, and us out there talking about some of the developments that we make, and what you can get from that and take into your own business and learn from that, it's second to none. Yeah, that's great. Just the sort of conversations you have generally. And I have to say, I attended your session as well, Holly, so you're getting all the praises. It was incredibly insightful, and I specifically carved out time for your session. So
I feel so honoured.
So it sounds like to me that we've just all got a big YouTube watch, ahead of us. I know I certainly felt that way today, and I was going to say I was particularly sorry to miss Henry's session on NGM and IDP together, especially given what I do. But I think that there are a lot of opportunities in the industry right now, and this is where I put you a little bit on the spot in terms of what are you seeing out there in the world today? What are you seeing in terms of themes and developments that are recurring over and over and over again? So much of IT management is adapting to the world around us, and so we've got to look for what rhymes. And in a lot of ways, the approaches that we take are based on what we're seeing in the field. So, from that perspective, what are you seeing out there that you think we all need to be paying more attention to than we would have otherwise?
there's the big one, the big one that gets mentioned every single place, everywhere you go is AI, right? And that's the elephant.
That was going to be my one.
I
I was going to say ethical. I was going to say ethical AI.
I was going to say I did see a Google AI result today, asking about pizza sauce in very specific terms on how do you make how do you make the cheese stick to the sauce on the pizza? And one of the ideas was to mix in an eighth cup of non-toxic glue, and that was when I decided the computers had probably gone too far. But I was going to say AI is definitely something of mixed metaphor, right?
Yeah, I know. It touches so many different subjects and so many different areas. I mean, if you're not paying attention to it now, you really should. I mean, it's so much available out there now, in terms of it's free, things are on the internet, people are going to it to help their everyday work, and how you can bring that into your job and into the job that you're doing and your work environment is what it's now starting to become. But you also have to be wary of the dangers of that, like you said. You don't want to be mixing non-toxic glue into any food that you make.
Well, it's non-toxic, so obviously it's a flavor enhancer.
Yeah, it depends. Might make you sick, but it's fine. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but it's the dangers that come with that. It is, from a work environment, it's sensitive files. Accessing the data that it's got. When you look at things around Microsoft Copilot, for example, giving it access to your 365 instance, that's there's a lot to consider there. You can't just jump into it. It's expensive, the data that it's got access to, and the best thing I ever heard was for AI was crap in, crap out. It was always the best terminology. So it's definitely one that should be on everyone's mind, I think. Or it probably is on everyone's mind because it gets mentioned everywhere that you look. It's the big marketing term.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot. We see it a lot because we're actually getting a lot of customers starting to target Mac as a platform, both on the user side and on the cloud side. And it, like you said, touches all sorts of areas, data sovereignty. You've picked up this model to train it to do things, but who trained it in the first place, and what was that?
And what was it?
Why did it think glue was a good idea?
Yeah.
And a lot of that becomes an interesting challenge to deal with, both from a security and an access perspective, and as well as where does it run and what is it allowed to do. Some of our customers are empowering it to act on behalf of the user, which from an accessibility perspective is amazing, because now not only can you communicate in new ways to this technology, but it can actually go do things maybe you wouldn't be able to do yourself. And then that's also horrifying, because where's the line of accountability and responsibility and the legality of it? So it becomes a very, very deep problem very, very quickly.
I mean, if we're building on that, the other thing that's happening around then is data interconnectivity, right? Like, we're making a lot of presumptions, and we have, by necessity of the requirement to connect everything that we have together, and we've put a face on that in terms of interoperability.
Yeah.
And we are now at a state where I think we have to get back to critically asking both the what are we doing with this thing, and also the why are we doing with this thing. But then the third question is what is the benefit or the use case for the thing if we were taking the easy path? So, you know, like it's especially top of mind in the United States right now. We've had a lot of pretty high profile compromised data scenarios from places that we generally use as individuals. I think it's coming to the public consciousness in a way that is making it more palatable. But the other side of that is also like those of us who are like, well, we do the integration, so cool. Like now, how do I explain this? How do I explain that back? So I think there's actually a question about, you know, like where are the walled gardens appropriate again? And like, I think that's also just a fundamental shift in the way that we work that's happening by the state of the world that we are now in, having gone through like a very cataclysmic set of years. So I don't know how we take that and make it tangible, but I'll chew on it with, take another sip of my beer instead. Worry about it next week.
I was going to say, Erin wins this panel for having brought a beer with her. I was not simply that smart.
I am setting a trend for us, so just as a reminder, we all get to go hang out at Shelter Hall after this.
That is correct. I was going to say 7 o'clock tonight at Shelter Hall. If you don't have a wristband, you're not getting in. So please make sure you have a wristband. Make sure to remember your wristband and join us all at Shelter Hall in about an hour and a half. So Holly, how about you?
So I was going to talk about AI. And of course, it's what we all love talking about at the moment, particularly with regards to the ethics and the use of ethical AI. But something that I've started to see some traction and that I'm fully behind, and this is because my son, my 12-year-old son, did a project on it. He goes to a sustainability centre on a Wednesday for school, and they have to work on environmental projects. My 12-year-old son, and I've got this if anyone ever wants to read it, wrote a 10-year plan for how many more data centers we're going to need to cope with the generative AI that we're coming in a trajectory 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 year, and where we're going to put those data centers with regards to geopolitical problems that we're facing at the moment, but also the heat of data centers and how that's, you know, we look at Microsoft sinking the one in the Nordics and then having to bring that back up. Where are we going to put them? So that's one of my concerns. And the other one that I have is what I'm focusing on in Portsmouth is digital citizenship. Digital citizenship of how we as digital citizens learn in disinformation, within a disinformation and misinformation world of online. And a great example of this is my mate Rick. My mate Rick is a Chief Information Security Officer at quite a well-known cybersecurity organization, and he is one of LinkedIn's top agricultural voices.
I'm sorry, you said agriculture.
Yeah, because he contributes to that. Has anyone seen those adverts for LinkedIn where you can become a top voice and contribute? They're all AI, and they're AI generated, and it's basically training the AI to, like you say, how do you make pizza topping stick to the base? And he just kept putting in some of them, farm, farm, farm. And it was accepted, and not only was it accepted, it was put as one of the top answers. So what worries me, I ran some simulation with some of my schools with years 10 and 11 with regards to security threats. And most of them passed my phishing campaigns. Some of the sophisticated ones, yeah, I was a bit nasty. However, 87% of my students all failed in recognizing dis and misinformation from AI-generated content. And I think that we need to start understanding where's that going to go, how, and we need to focus not on being able to stop it, because we're not going to be able to, but we need to start educating on people and how they are interpreting information that is generated from AI. And another scary piece of research, Generation Alpha, I've got 2 of them. That's my son and my daughter. If you give them 2 pieces of information, one from a parent or teacher, and one from Alexa, or from a computer search or cyber search, they're more likely to believe the second over their parent. What's that saying about our digital landscape at the moment in terms of supporting these young children growing up? Did I answer the question?
I think you did.
Okay.
And I was going to say, we have this guy, I have a 10-year-old, and so, I was going to say, there are definitely times when I hear Charlie ask, the lady in his watch, or actually, I think he's gotten switched to the male voice on the watch now. But like, he will believe whatever answer is provided out of that, and most of the time it's fine. Every now and again, we get something, because most of the time he's asking like, okay, what type of Pokemon is strong against like the fairy type? And it's just like, I'm amazed that one,
It's
Siri
poison.
knows the answer, and two, it is most of the time correct. But we start to think about the trust that we place into the systems that we have, and that what we are not recognizing is that technological systems are at their base human-based systems. They are not infallible. They, in fact, carry all of the biases of the people that wrote them, and some of the ones that maybe came in from other sources, especially when we get into that. And so thinking about those kind of things, what are the systems that we have in IT land and other places that are like that we're not thinking about yet? In terms of understanding the inherent biases that our technological systems contain that we are yet to consider. And so I think I just wrote 3 new conference talks for next year, so come back next year and we'll talk about the inherent biases of technological systems, and I will put you all ever so delightfully to sleep. But as we think about these kind of things, that's a really important topic to consider, is information literacy and authoritative writing. Because I was going to say that the thing that drives me nuts about AI is that it is completely authoritative. It knows exactly how to write the perfect sentence that says, this is true when this is 2 + 2 = 5.
Well, and talking about that, it even comes from the foundational work that's used to build the thing in the first place. I can't count the number of brilliant developer meetings where I've walked in where somebody who's new comes in with authority to explain how we're solving this, and that's excellent, and you're completely wrong. I appreciate your perspective. But to your point, the AI is the same way, and that guy's writing the AI. I think it's embedded deeper than we think, and it's not just at the code level, it's at the data level, it's at the device level. There's certain predispositions of the personality to solve a problem a certain way, and those are baked into how the system itself is going to work. And to your point, it's how do we recognize that? And it feels like the proclivity for disinformation is going up exponentially, so the ability to filter and recognize it needs to follow or match, or dear God, come close. And I feel like that's not quite the case these days.
Just to quickly say, to that point, how do you tackle that? For anyone who has affiliations to schools, I've wrote presentations that offer advice to both the school itself, the pupils with age-specific agendas, and to the parents in addressing digital citizenship, which also supports parents on technology addiction. And for the pupils, it looks at what good looks like and how to actually start supporting them, because that's going to feed in. And I think honestly that's where we need to start. We need to start looking at school levels, and as industries, we need to start feeding back. It's not going to exist in curriculum. Even curriculum now in technology and cyber, it's not industry specific, it's tick boxing to an extent. So if anyone's affiliated and you want some information on dis and misinformation that you would like to take to any schools, send me your email address and I'll send you what I've got. Please feel free to change it. Change my name to your name first and foremost. But it's a fantastic initiative that I would love everyone to start with.
So when we start thinking about of course now I'm deep down the STS wormhole. My master's is in history of technology, focusing on science and technology studies. So it's all of the humanities applications of the technical spaces that we live in. Each and every person here is as much a technologist as they are a system designer, as they are an interpreter of all of those things. Interpreting these kind of things for your people is part of that job. How do you take that message back to your people and talk with them about AI? And talk with them about generative technologies writ large? Because that's a fun situation that we're all kind of facing right now, we have to think about this stuff.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because I think you want it to be positive.
Yes.
People always want the positive thing out of it. And I think that's kind of how you're going to have that conversation. It's like, yeah, it can help us with this, it can help us with this, it can happen in this. And then but, there's a big but in that, and it's like, but we need to consider A, we need to consider B, we need to consider C. And it needs to be well thought out, we're very well planned, very well considered. But, we can do all these great things as well, don't get put off, it's, so.
The yes and modality of that is what I think about a lot. I have a really fantastic UX partner who always starts the conversation with yes, and we're going to go and do this other thing also, because we need to balance for accessibility. We need to balance for awareness. We need to balance for all of those other things.
I think this is a tough one to talk about still. One, because it's an extremely rapidly evolving technology. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am an expert on this or have the right full language to talk about this with people, because like the first thing that I'm doing is thinking about it from an integration and like just an accessibility perspective. Like, can I do this thing? Is it allowed to do this thing? Are the questions that I really have that are solidified to ask. But then the background conversation that always happens in my head and our head, both as an individual who participates in this and somebody who has to administrate it at a corporate level, is what are the ethics around this? And I am not an ethicist. And there's a lot of that arc that then comes into play when you are also having the conversations even at work. And because this is hitting such a personal perspective and a personal interaction, and the conversations around that are things that I cannot have on behalf of individuals or with individuals in that sense, is I have to toe a corporate line. And, arguably my personal perspective may be slightly different, but if I bring that, if you try to meld all of those things together, you're gonna end up in just running in circles. Whether or not you end up doing the integration is an entirely other thing, but there is no, I would say, directly ethical and clear line in terms of what we think about AI and the way that it can operate in typical corporate entities, let me be clear, and what we then need to do to facilitate that as people who administrate within a corporate environment. So that is to say, I think the right answer in a lot of cases around this is I don't know, which we are all very familiar with, and if we are not, let's refamiliarize ourselves. And then the second part is, who else can we lean on to have those conversations,
Yes.
right? I think there's a wealth of resources, but the question isn't then resources, it is how much do you know about your business, because that's generally where we're talking about utilizing these things. And in knowing your business, what do you know about them that will then inform the way that you can have essentially an applicable conversation to make a qualified decision, because suddenly we are the qualified decision makers for this.
That's it, right? And when did we become not the riffraff? And that's always
Well, I start that way and I'll probably end that way, but in between there, I'm gonna look good, so at least I'm gonna sound good. I don't know, we'll write some good comms somewhere in the middle
I was
there.
going to say, the second half of the phrase, I don't know, is, but I'll find out. And I think that approach is an approach that everybody in this room can identify with. We've all been assigned, tasks that we don't fully understand, or tasks that are much more open-ended. And the answer is, I don't know, but I'll find out. Because I think that there's an innate curiosity in this profession. There has to be, in order to solve the problems that we have to solve.
Or asking for more time like I did.
Oh.
I don't know. Can someone else answer while I think of it?
I got no freaking clue. Spend most of my day saying I don't know.
I do think you hit on an interesting point about knowledge around the business, in particular to this technology, because I think the exciting and terrifying part of it is sort of a system that can start to automate itself and act on its own behalf. And when you start to think of it in that perspective, it becomes a sort of artificial and automated employee of your company and your corporate governance. And that's a way to frame up the walls initially, I suppose.
And that leads us to a really interesting point. I'm really glad you brought that up, Chris, because when you said the magic word, it becomes like an employee. Well, can it be held accountable like an employee?
Right.
And how do you hold that system accountable at that point?
Good question, Tom. I don't know, but I'll.
Well, I was going to say, we think about this, as always, the history of technology guy, and of course we'll talk about Charles in a minute. But when we think about those kind of things, there's this really great page from some IBM documentation back in the 60s. A computer cannot be held responsible for its actions, therefore it should never make a management decision.
Right, and yet you're getting in a Waymo car anytime soon, and it's going to drive you down the street and make a lot of choices.
For the record, hard pass. I have limits.
But yeah, ironic. Yeah, I remember sitting with the CEO when AI came up, and we were talking about something. And one of the first conversations we had is we were literally real-time reading an article about an adventurous young lawyer who used AI to generate his case in front of the judge, and case cited a complete list of hallucinated and fabricated cases, and
Yes.
thrown out on his ass.
Yes, well, and that's happened repeatedly now.
Right.
And at each time, they end up fined by the Bar Association in the United States.
Yeah.
Because you cannot go up there and lie to the judge.
It's illegal.
It's against the law. Who knew?
But it does put, the fact that there's going to be a whole specialization around AI law, I think that's the interesting thing, is this such a baseline technology that is a cultural thing. It's going to fragment integration and legality and corporate governance. And it's just very broad and the bottom of the tree.
Gesundheit.
I recognize that this is also very heady, and one of the things that I feel very necessitated to do is bring it back down to, okay, well, what the hell do I do with this now? Because thank you, you scared the shit out of me. Cool. And generally the answer to that is, one of the things that I am in the process of working on and involved in is that my company was very open to actually building an ethics committee. And that is hard for us to do because we are one aspect of that ethics committee. So my recommendation, if this is something that you are thinking about, because you've opened a scary door for us. Right. If we are the decision maker for this and the computer is not liable, then we are liable. And I personally don't have the money for that. And I generally also like getting paid. So,
there's a balance.
Yeah, there's a balance between that. So this is, one of the things I talked about this morning is it's really important to go find your partners. This is a great opportunity. You are an expert in a particular right. We are technologists at heart, but we do not understand our legal systems to the depths. This is an emerging technology. So this is your time to go and see if you do have a legal ethics department. This is your time to go find your compliance partners. If you don't have good relationships with them, this is probably something they're sweating too. We've had a relative amount of success with at least having some really heady conversations that are going to give us a position within a place that, we'd love to just spend our time debating, but unfortunately it is not a salon and we have to write a policy at some point. But those heady conversations are giving us something that we can at least swirl around, which is, okay, well, we have to pick something for Chime. And picking something for Chime means what is the Chime-y way that we are going to be able to apply AI as an emerging technology that we want to invest in. But we know that we have limitations because we are in finance and blah, 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 blah. And what are the concerns about that? What are the concerns for the individuals that we support? What are the concerns for our employees? And how does that,
And this is where we get to fun statements like corporate values, right?
Yes.
And I think we've all been in some of those meetings where we get to see the slideshow of, oh, these are our corporate values. And this is a place where sometimes we roll our eyes at those, and sometimes they are incredibly good guidelines for do or do not do.
This is probably where I should say that I am representing myself today.
Very clearly
Nice.
said.
Yeah.
Nice.
Making it clear.
No, speaking in your capacity as citizen Aaron.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, yeah. Well, and I think that those are the kind of things where we have to evaluate in our professional capacity what our personal values and our corporate values have to align, and whether there can be, there's always going to be some space between them because there's going to be space there, and that's perfectly fine.
No perfection under capitalism, right?
Well, perfect, correct.
Whatever. So, we have to do this, and I don't know. This is a really interesting one, specifically because it is actually putting, I think, a lot of people's individualistic morals into a position where you don't really have a control of the differentiation between those two things. It will affect you. Period. The end. And here we are.
Well, and
4 minutes to go, and it's AI conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was hoping we were going to avoid that today, but actually I've loved where we've gone with it. Because I struggle with this, and I certainly see and feel the pressure in the industry to adapt these kind of technologies, and there are certainly places where it is fully adaptable. But I feel like where we start to run into trouble is when we get down to the employee on their own path, without clear management structures in place.
And who controls the controller? And it's the automated controller now. So
And when does the model change? And what happens when the model changes? And how do we evaluate?
Yeah.
We have so many great unanswered questions out of today. We could probably go for another 2 or 3 hours, but we've got a couple of minutes left. And I want to give us a chance to kind of peel back for a second and say, we get these opportunities so scarcely to be together and to talk about these things together. What are you excited about for tomorrow? We've had a whole big first day. We've got a whole second day to go. What are you excited about for tomorrow? And the answer could be your hangover from Shelter Hall this evening, which again, 7 p.m., needs a wristband, see a staffer in a blue t-shirt. That's all the important part. Eric?
Oh, but very simple. I'm really looking forward to having as many conversations as we can around what we do.
Yes.
Could be our product, could be anything else. I mean, it's a great opportunity to have to get to meet people, exchange different points of views, and find similarities and learn from something, I mean, that we don't know about. It's great. I mean, just as many conversations as we can.
Well, it's so important. I mean, these are a lot of relationships that get built out of these kind of events. Zentral's booth's at the far side, back in the corner, tucked around the corner. Go see Henry, Johannes, and Eric. So,
Thanks.
how about you, Hall?
Yeah, so I'm just going to mimic with conversations because I talk about a subject, neurodiversity, which can mean a lot to some people or to people they work with or their children or niece and nephew. And as soon as I walked off the stage, I had people to talk to in saying, thank you for making me feel seen. Thank you for showing that, that there's a future for my child that's making it more inclusive. And I've since had messages sent to me on LinkedIn. And I ask you, if there are questions, I'm safe. I'm that person you can ask. If you've got a question about neurodiversity, neurodivergence with yourself and your employer, and you want advice, please continue to have any conversation. And of course, if you want to talk about what I'm doing at Portsmouth with the education side and technology and online bits and bobs, or if you want to read my crazy 12-year-old son's ethical AI data generation
I
environment.
actually really do.
I was thinking, I'm ready for the think tank. Like, I know he's, got a long way to go, but like, can we just get him in on the think tank now? I'm ready to quit and pivot.
He's
here.
fantastic. For being told, and this is about breaking barriers, right? For being told when he was first diagnosed with autism, his first diagnosis, he would never verbally communicate, and he wouldn't amount, and this is the exact words, he won't amount to much. Oh. He won't amount to much. To set your expectations, he won't amount to much. In terms of fitting in, because I've literally gone like this then, in terms of living in the society we today, but that doesn't mean that he won't be happy. And as I said at my talk, he's preparing for Team GB. He's actually training with England Athletics now. He's a chess champion, writes crazy research proposals while sat in a hammock at a sustainability centre. And he's happy, and he's got me and other advocates for neuroinclusion fighting so that he doesn't struggle the way that I did. Someone's got 11 seconds, quick.
I think we're just about out of time. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists today. Can we get a round of applause for our incredible panel? It's fine. All right. Oh, Alex, I think it's time. Is it time? It's about time. All right. So. Yeah, no, this was great. And I was going to say, we will see everybody at Shelter Hall this evening again, third time, 7 p.m. Wear the bracelet or they won't let you in. And I see Alex coming up to the front. So. Yeah. Let's leave everybody in place. Just 1 second. I got one more thing. Damn it. There's 3 quick things I need to say. Everybody knows who Charles is. I don't even need a last name. I'm just saying, you know who Charles is. If Charles ever helped you with something, unprompted, stand up right now. Charles picked me up in a bar, and for this conference, we were walking into the bar, and he was like, we should do a podcast together. And I was like, okay, Charles, that sounds like a great idea. I had no idea he was actually serious. We're 364 episodes into this. And this past weekend, we recorded our first episode without him. And we kept expecting him to show up. And it was really hard that he didn't. Go to the next slide, please, because I can't do this and not stare at my friend. Everybody in this room who is standing now is the inheritor of Charles in a lot of ways. And we all carry with that the responsibility to help somebody else down the line, because that's how we do a good turn for our friend who can't be here today and who we miss dearly. The thing that Charles loved more than helping other people was all of the people that he was helping. And that's something that we get to carry forward. And it's our responsibility to do so because he didn't get to be here today. And I'm broken to pieces about that. But he would be skipping down the street knowing at all of the people standing up, and he could tell you about every one of those conversations. And I think it's our responsibility to be skipping down the street tonight as we head down to Shelter Hall. Again, 7 o'clock. Wear the bracelet, please. So, if you ever attended a conference with Charles, you know that there is something coming next. And it's really important that you join us over at the Mac Admins Foundation booth because we have shots of Jaeger for you all. So, come join us, celebrate our friend, tell Charles stories. Thank you. All right. All right, let's go drink.